What is up, YouTube friends? So today I wanted to get on here and talk about kind of how my first trimester has been going. Today is officially week 9, so we are officially 9 weeks pregnant, which is crazy. And I also wanted to kind of talk about what to expect, some of the symptoms, tips, things that I've learned, and just kind of how to survive in general. So the first thing I want to talk about is how does the first trimester work, right? So this is extremely confusing, or at least it was for me, even though I'm a nurse and I remember learning about all of this in nursing school. Basically, how it all works is your OB gives you your due date based off of the first day of your last menstrual period. So then 40 weeks after that date, you are due. What that means is that your first 1 to 2 weeks of pregnancy, you're not actually pregnant. So your first week, you're on your period. Your second week is the week that you technically should ovulate. The third week is when implantation occurs, and that just means that the baby or the little ball of cells at that point implants into the wall of your uterus. Shortly after that, you will test positive for the HCG hormone, which means that you're pregnant. So I was going to start off by talking about kind of week 3, even though you're still, you haven't necessarily missed a period yet or anything like that. You're going through this implantation period. And so I was going to talk about my experience with that. So for me, I was actually visiting my mom in Reno, and then we were driving that week to Oregon to see my sister and her family, and the only thing I remember about it was I was working out in my mom's living room before we had left to go to Oregon, and I just had, all of a sudden I had to stop, and I bent over and I had the most severe cramping for a solid maybe 3 minutes. And my mom, who has been obsessed with when we're going to get pregnant and wanting to know and wants to be a grandparent again ASAP, came in and saw me bent over and just randomly said, "Haley, you need to slow down, because what if you're pregnant and this cramping could be something bad?" So I had a slight thought, because I have a lot of friends right now who are pregnant or trying to get pregnant, and I thought, they say that when you go through implantation that you feel some cramping, and then it went away and I really thought nothing about it. After that, the weekend was pretty normal. I didn't feel weird or anything. I was able to work out. There were a few foods that normally I would eat or not think twice about, that I was just kind of like, no, I don't want anything to do with that. That was really the only symptom. I might have drank wine that week because we were in Oregon and went to a vineyard, but I didn't really enjoy it. I don't know. And maybe there was this subconscious thing going on that I knew maybe something was going on, or that we could be pregnant, and so that might have been part of it. So week 4. Week 4, if you're trying to get pregnant, or you've been talking about it, or maybe you've been counting your cycle or paying attention to that, week 4 is kind of the week that you are going to normally find out, okay, we're pregnant, because week 4 is usually when you miss that period and maybe start having some symptoms, but still not much is going on other than your missed periods, the one thing that's going to give it away that you're pregnant. For us, I was 1 day late, and I was in complete denial because we had literally tried. It was the first month we had actually tried to start conceiving. And so when I was 1 day late, and I'm never late, I was like, well, I went to the store, I bought a pregnancy test, my husband came home, and I had set them on the counter. I hadn't taken them yet. I had already decided that the next morning, on Saturday morning, that we would take the test, because everything I was reading was telling me that your first time that you take a test, it might be negative depending on how much of that HCG hormone is in your system, and that the best time to take a pregnancy test is in the morning. Once my husband saw the pregnancy test, at first was a little bit freaked out, and then couldn't stop talking about it, and he immediately was like, "We should take the test tonight. We should just take one tonight." And I said, well, it might not come back positive. It might be like not read right, because when you pee on your stick, the HCG is the most is in your system. It's the least dilute, I should say, in the morning. And he was like, well, let's just try it. You bought 2, so then we can take another one tomorrow morning. And he all of a sudden was just like so anxious and so kind of excited to take that first test. We took the first test. It was probably like 10:30 at night that Friday night, which everything that you read again tells you to wait until morning and not do it in the evening, because that's usually when people will get those false negatives. And we took it anyway. And it didn't even take a full minute. In about 20 seconds, that sucker was positive. It was really fast. And it was funny because Nathan came in the bathroom and he couldn't, there's a control line next to where the result line is, and he could only focus on the control line and why was that there and what did that mean. And I finally just had to look at him and say, it's positive. Like, quit asking questions, it's positive. After that, we were kind of super awkward and went in the kitchen and we were like, well, so we're pregnant. And then it felt really weird. And honestly, my first reaction, I think that one of the first things I said to him was, now it's gonna have to come out. That just, there was that brief thought of that really freaks me out. And I think that's fair. Week 5 started the next week on Wednesday, but my annual appointment, my just regular follow-up annual appointment with my female doctor, with my OB, was Monday. And so I called her Monday morning and said, well, I took a positive pregnancy test, 2 of them actually, because we did end up taking another one on Sunday just to make sure. And again, it turned positive in like 20 seconds. So I met with her on Monday. Sure enough, yes, you're pregnant. Ran a whole bunch of lab tests, drew a whole bunch of blood, had me pee on another stick. Went over basically all of those things not to do, all of those things that you can do, all of those things that you can eat, that you shouldn't eat, what vitamins you should be taking, all of those things. So we went over all of that, which was extremely overwhelming at first, considering we had found out the day before. And then that next afternoon, I'm getting like all of these facts and things that I'm supposed to be doing all of a sudden because I'm pregnant, and I hadn't even had time really to process it. So it was really crazy. Week 5 started on Wednesday, and this was a really tricky time because Nathan and I were literally both traveling like every week, and we were not only traveling, but we were traveling separately. So we found out he left Monday for a work trip, and then Wednesday I was officially 5 weeks pregnant, not really having any symptoms yet. Thursday I left for a bachelorette party in Florida, which was a task in itself to survive. Being 5 weeks pregnant, not wanting to tell anyone at that point, and eventually kind of having to because it was pretty obvious that something was going on. After that, I felt really good. The only thing week 5, and it might have partially been because I was at a bachelorette party, was the fatigue was real. And I definitely started peeing a lot. And even before I had found out that we were officially pregnant, before we took that first test, I was already taking a nap like every day after work, which I just thought, I'm extra tired, but now I know there was definitely another reason for that. So that fatigue just slowly kind of got worse and worse. And being at a bachelorette party in Florida, away from home, away from my bed with girls I didn't know, was a little bit tough. It was a little bit hard to get some good sleep. So fatigue was definitely a thing. And I was peeing constantly. I got back from the bachelorette party on Sunday, and then on Tuesday I started having some cramping, and I had the beginning of what I thought, oh, this kind of feels like a UTI. Wednesday morning, peed in another cup again, and Wednesday evening they started me on an antibiotic for a UTI. They said there was a lot of blood in the urine and that I definitely had a severe infection, so got to deal with that. And Wednesday I was officially 6 weeks pregnant. So I was 6 weeks pregnant, but I was also dealing with a UTI. And so at that point I started having extremely severe cramping. And I had heard that cramping is kind of a normal thing with your first trimester. And most of the reason behind that is because your uterus starts to stretch and grow, and you get to feel that. And so I thought, okay, this is cramping, but it's pretty bad. But it all kind of related back to not only was my uterus stretching, but I also had this UTI, which was not fun to start out, again, just starting out with this whole first trimester thing. So week 6, I started to feel better as those antibiotics got in my system by like Friday or Saturday. That is when, so Wednesday started week 6, that is when nausea and queasiness kind of started to set in. The nausea wasn't overly severe, but it was definitely there, and I was kind of in denial at first that I'm nauseous because this is that morning sickness thing that people talk about. Not only that, but I had this infection and I was just getting more and more tired every single day, plus working as a nurse and everything else. Week 6, I think because the nausea set in, this craving for carbs galore set in big time. I was working on my nursing job. I was in the bathroom constantly cramping and peeing like twice an hour, probably at least. But by the end of week 6, I was feeling a lot better. We actually celebrated our 2-year anniversary that week and celebrated with pasta because I had a great excuse to eat carbs, right? Roses, chocolate, movie night at home. It was perfect. At the end of week 6 is actually when we told our parents and our siblings, and they all live away from us. So we told them via FaceTime. We were not planning to do that. We were going to wait until 10 weeks when we're supposed to hear the heartbeat. But some things came up and we just decided, what the heck, let's just do it. It was also getting a little bit difficult to hide the pregnancy and the symptoms, and we had went to a wedding the weekend before, actually with my husband's family, and I was fake drinking Sprite and lime and ordering glasses of wine and not drinking them. We managed to get through that, and then after that weekend we were like, this is going to be too hard. And so I think it was Monday, almost to week 7, that we ended up telling family. Week 7 was pretty much like week 6. There wasn't a whole lot of difference. Still craving a lot of carbs, still definitely having some of that nausea and queasiness. Celebrated my 27th birthday with, again, we went out to a movie and dinner. I ate a lot of popcorn. By the end of week 7, I had felt a little bit better. I think maybe I was figuring out how to manage it a little bit more. Really, it kind of turns out that the symptoms just sort of come and go, and you never know. You might have a nauseous day, and then you might have a feeling great day the next day. For me, especially in those 2 weeks where nausea really started to be an issue, I wasn't getting sick, but I was definitely sitting in the bathroom thinking, I'm going to get sick. And so what I found that worked the best for me was in the mornings, if I don't eat first thing and a pretty hearty breakfast, I immediately start getting nauseous. And then it's almost harder to control after the nausea sets in. So I have read that a lot of women will keep like snacks or crackers or a granola bar or something on their bed, and they'll eat before they ever even get out of bed. It's a great idea. I just make sure that that's the first thing I do in the morning, where usually I would get up, get around, do all my morning stuff, and then right before I leave for work, I would eat breakfast. That doesn't work for me currently at this stage anymore. That normally will control it in the mornings, but I have found that if I'm not eating a little something every couple hours, the nausea will come back. So I've been making it a point to have snacks at work, fruit, cracker, whatever happens to sound good that day, and that I'm kind of grazing almost every couple hours and eating small, frequent meals. They tell you to do that. There's a reason, because it really works. Week 8, I had actually been feeling, like I said, a little bit better towards the end of week 7 as far as nausea and stuff go. And then week 8, it seemed like I woke up that morning and it was back. Definitely still exhausted, definitely napping a lot, definitely still peeing. Pretty sure that symptom doesn't go away. From what I understand, that's going to last a solid 40 weeks. The one symptom that did set in week 8 was heartburn, and that kind of hit full force. So heartburn, reflux, and I just started getting extremely uncomfortable in the evenings. I started to find that mornings were a little bit easier, and maybe that's because of my new morning routine that I had figured out was working better for me. But then evenings, we might be laying on the couch watching a movie, or I might be working on my computer, and I just all of a sudden I can't sit still, I can't lay in one spot, I'm just uncomfortable. And it's usually a combination of some reflux and some heartburn and bloating, and my stomach's just not happy. The things that I did to help with that is normally I just go get in bed and fall asleep by like 9 o'clock. I do feel a lot better doing that, and then in the morning usually I feel good when I wake up. Only other two things that I've noticed in week 8 were I started having some really wild, vivid, crazy dreams. One involved a lightning storm and people getting electrocuted on our deck. A tree fell through the skylight in our bathroom, and then the entire house flooded. That one was really weird. Not really dreams that make any sense, but dreams that were extremely vivid and real and detailed, and waking up remembering every aspect of them. The other symptom that I started having more of in week 8 was I've had a couple pretty bad headaches. I went to bed the other night with a headache and took some Tylenol before bed, and then every hour was up, just my head hurting. In the morning when I woke up, it was still there, and I had to go to work, so I definitely drank a little bit of coffee, which I haven't been doing much of, and ate some breakfast. It seemed to help. It kind of lingered all day, but eventually got better, and I just kind of pushed through it. So my main tips for each of these weeks, as far as nausea, like I said, be eating small frequent meals. Eat the first thing when you wake up in the morning. And for me, that looks like usually a serving of carbs and a serving of protein for sure, and then whatever else sounds good. I usually have some fruit. So that might be some Greek yogurt, granola, and blueberries, and then a couple pieces of turkey bacon and an egg, which is a really big breakfast for me, but that kind of helps sustain me and give me energy through the day, and it works. That nausea doesn't hit me first thing when I wake up in the morning. How I said the symptoms kind of come and go, my advice for you in that is enjoy the good days, take advantage of them, be productive, get your workouts in on those days, do your chores or to-do list around the house on those days. Take advantage. Meal prep if you need to. Do whatever it is that you're not going to want to do when you're not feeling well. Maybe on a different day, get it done on those good days, and just be happy and feel blessed that you're having a good day. Rest as much as you can. Nap, nap, nap. Drink a lot of water, and sometimes just indulge in those cravings. Just do it sometimes. Sometimes you just need to. The things that have worked for me as far as headaches, you can take Tylenol, so I've done that. Excedrin tension headache is just Tylenol and caffeine, so I only take one pill because you don't want to be having too much caffeine. Peppermint oil is another thing that helped me a lot with those headache days, and I talked to my OB first to make sure that essential oils were approved. A cold washcloth over my eyes always does the trick. Sometimes you might need a little bit of coffee, especially if you're used to caffeine. Eating, for sure. Make sure you're eating if you have a headache. That might be the source of the problem. And again, sleep. I think the things that have helped me the most are definitely, like I said, taking advantage of those good days. And when you can, really try to get a workout in, even if it's just yoga or Pilates. I notice that on those days, I always feel better after I've done something active, and sometimes that might just be taking my dog on a walk. And then on those days when you indulge in those cravings, you don't have to feel as bad, especially if you've done your workout. My goal right now is to try to work out 3 to 4 times a week, and always make sure that you're eating before those workouts, because I made that mistake one morning and I worked out first thing and did not eat, and that was one of my worst nausea days. Also, for nausea, the things that I found that work wonders are citrus fruits and diffusing essential oils. So any citrusy essential oils like lemongrass or orange, and then peppermint oil helps a lot with nausea too. I think lavender is also recommended for nausea. My favorite craving, and I'm probably eating way too much of it, but it could be worse, are clementines. If I am feeling nauseous, it's always the one thing that I can tolerate, and again, I think it goes back to those citrus fruits. The thing that's helped me on those days at work when I get that queasy, nauseous feeling is I started taking lemon drop type candies, like lemon hard candies, to work, and just kind of sucking on those, and those seem to kind of help those nausea periods pass as well. I personally so far have not had any weight gain. I've kind of stayed in the same 1 pound area that I'm usually in. I know that sometimes in first trimester, women actually lose weight. Sometimes in first trimester, the average is kind of gaining 1 to 5 pounds. So whatever it is that your body is doing, be okay with it, accept it, know that it's normal, and that you have to be constantly listening to your body, whether that's needing to sleep, needing to eat, or whatever it is that you're needing that day. And like I said, sometimes just you've got to just indulge in those random cravings. Mine have been so odd, and they're different every week. For example, last night I needed a bean and cheese burrito, and I could not let it go until I had a bean and cheese burrito. I don't know if I was going to ever be satisfied if I didn't eat a bean and cheese burrito last night. Waffles, taquitos, cheese dip, really all the terrible foods that I don't normally eat, that's what I want to eat right now. So That's great. And I really didn't want to play into the whole cliche of eating pickles because all pregnant women love pickles. Supposedly, I don't even like pickles at all. Then 2 days ago, I walked into the store and I walked past a jar of pickles and I bought the damn pickles. That was on Sunday. Today is Wednesday. Half the jar is gone. I would love to hear any of your guys' random cravings that you've had or anything that you've experienced in the first trimester or anything in the last part of your first trimester as I'm going into that. I love advice, I love tips, I love stories. If you have anything like that or any good recommendations for handling things like nausea and fatigue and bloating and cramping and all of those things that we all get to go through, I would love to hear them. You can comment them below. And thanks for watching. If you guys are enjoying these videos, please like, comment, and subscribe to continue to watch our journey over the next 7 months and kind of experience it with us. Thanks, guys. These are so gross, but they taste so good.